I solemnly swear that there will be no jump scares in this video. Trust me. Okay now, Five Nights at Freddy's. I'm sure at least all of you are familiar with the name. For the last 8 or so months, it's been everywhere. All the popular Let's Players have looked at it. I'm pretty sure you gagged one of your friends to try it out. And now it's time to watch little old me take a shot at it. I believe the first time I heard of the series was actually during last year's Sonic Hacking Contest showcase, where it was my co-host Nathan who brought it up. He then linked me to Markiplier's playthrough of it, and I gotta say it looked interesting, but not quite interesting enough to immediately drop everything I was doing just to see what all the commotion was about. Didn't stop this guy from immediately checking it out. Elliot, thank you for joining me for today's video.
I am?
Yes, you are. Now you want to go and explain how this game came to be?
Sure.
So, the creator of the series is one Scott Cawthon. Originally, he had this game called Chipper & Sons Lumber Company that involved... I don't really know what's going on here, but it didn't matter because people were too busy being disturbed by how the animals looked. They almost resembled animatronics you probably saw as a kid at your local Chuck E. Cheese that you were trying so hard to forget until we made you remember just now. Sorry, blame Johnny, he wrote this part of the script.
Hey, now, they weren't that. Okay, yeah, they were. While Mr. Cawthon was initially distraught over the negative reception, he ultimately turned it on its head and decided to make a horror game out of the whole thing, only instead of chopping wood and doing whatever's going on here. The game involves you trying to avoid certain death by Freddy Fazbear and his Sunshine Gang. Thus, Five Nights at Freddy's, released in August of last year.
You take control, in massive quotes there, as a newly hired security guard who works the night shift. You see, during the day, the animatronics are nice and friendly to the kids out there, but at night, they suddenly become your worst nightmare as they have an insatiable urge to grab and stuff you inside an empty animatronic suit. That means death.
No shit. To prevent that happening, you can't let them get inside the office. You check the camera feeds to spot their current locations, and when they get too close, you shut these blast doors until they decide to go away. At no point are you ever allowed to simply get up and hightail it the fuck out of there. You are, for lack of a better description, super glued to your chair from 12 a.m. until 6 a.m. of the current night. You need to endure a total of 6 in-game hours before that session ends. Then you come back the next night for another round of Freddy Fazbear festivities because you really hate yourself. That or you get a sudden case of amnesia after exiting the building each night. There's no other explanation for why you keep coming back to the place with killer animatronics. Unless you get a kick out of it. Nonetheless, after 5 nights of that shit, you walk away with your week's restitution.
Five Nights at Freddy's sounds like a pretty simple game when you break it down, and, well, yeah, technically it is. The only thing you're allowed to do are checking cameras, flicking the hallway lights to see if anything's out there, and closing the blast doors when something is out there. The real challenge comes from 2 factors, the first being your power meter.
Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria has state-of-the-art animatronics that are able to move on their own accord during the night, but for some reason its building has really shitty electrical wiring.
Your power slowly drains through the night. When it reaches 0, the power goes out, and Freddy finds a new keyboard player for his band.
Why the second half of the song Toreador from Carmen?
I couldn't tell you. There's not really any relation as far as I know. Plus, I don't think the first half of the song would be any more appropriate. Everything you do costs power, and the more things you have active, the more faster the power drains. So if you're thinking you can just close both blast doors and call it a night, sorry to say that it'll only work in your dying dreams.
The second challenge is, believe it or not, your own anxiety. This is where the game really shines. For as simple as it looks and plays, the fact that you have 4 bloodthirsty animatronics after your ass does wonders for your nerves. You obviously don't want them getting into your office, so you gotta make sure to keep an eye on them via the cameras and reacting appropriately when they're right outside the door. It's a matter of control, reflexes, and most of all, fortitude. The animatronics don't necessarily make a beeline towards your office, but at times they can really fuck with you, like stalling outside the hallways, causing you to drain power because of the closed doors. And there are other elements such as the cameras going offline momentarily, which makes it difficult to track their movements. If you fail to do all of that, you're treated to your own death via a loud jump scare. But these are not what make the game difficult, it's how you react to them. In Five Nights at Freddy's, you are your own worst enemy.
If you're not one for getting jump scared, just playing this will make you a nervous wreck. The scariest part of this game is not the jump scare itself though, it's the anticipation for it. Kinda like how you're paranoid on whether or not John was serious about not having any jump scares in this video.
But you see, that's it. That's what this game does to you, and God, it's great at it. You do everything in your power to avoid getting that jump scare, because nobody likes getting jump scared, but your hands tremble, your heart pounds, you may even sweat a bit. The building makes all sorts of noises, you can just faintly hear movement in the background. The robots are out there, they're getting closer, and you only have so much power.
What's up?
Do you remember that security game prototype that Nintendo showed off at E3 last year?
Not really.
Never mind.
Five Nights at Freddy's excels at what it wants to deliver, a high adrenaline survival horror experience that managed to do so much with impressively so little. However, when you're looking to survive all 5 nights, when you're past the horror element of it all, you begin to notice the RNG of some components. There are things you can easily manipulate, like Foxy and Freddy when you constantly check on them, but things like how long Bonnie and Chica hang around the hallway seem to be random. At times it's as quick as 5 seconds, other times they can hang around for nearly a minute, which takes away so much power that having enough to survive until 6 AM is practically impossible, and that could get a tad frustrating.
And hey, if there's a way to manipulate even that, we don't see it and we didn't bother looking it up. Part of the fun is just throwing yourself into it all, and attempting to survive the whole week if you like what you see and are up for the task. Elliot certainly was, managed to complete all 5 nights partially blind over at SGB.
Yeah, and I nearly had a heart attack.
But you didn't, and you lived to play the next game in the series, Five Nights at Freddy's 2.
So yeah, the first game was an instant success, gaining massive praise and notoriety at the same time. A few months later, just a few months later, the second game was released for Steam. Which reminds me, we know that there are also mobile versions of these games, iOS and Android to be exact, and they're okay. You know, they get the job done. Being able to play them on the go is a nice plus, but the real experience is playing it on a computer, absorbing all of the atmospheric juices with a pair of headphones and feeling your hands tremble on the mouse. That's what it's all about. The second game brings more animatronics to the mix, in addition to the original 4. There are no doors to keep the suckers out, but you have this flashlight that can confuse the animatronics when they manage to creep into the hallway in front of you. It also lets you light up the rooms in the camera feed to get a better idea of where the animatronics are currently located. Your other means of protection is this Freddy Fazbear mask. If any of the animatronics manage to get inside the office, you have moments to slip on the mask and hope to God they buy it. If not, then, you know. FNAF 2, that's Five Nights at Freddy's 2 abbreviated, is a lot harder than FNAF 1. You still got the tension, the atmosphere, and anxiety, but now there's more to manage and react to, like this music box that you need to frequently wind up to keep the thing inside from coming out and getting you. If and when any of the animatronics get close by, you gotta be fast enough to put the mask on and fool them long enough until they leave, and some of these assholes are special in their own way, like Balloon Boy. If you don't fool him with that mask when he's looking at you through the vent, he disables your flashlight when he gets inside the office, and I guess he takes the batteries out. But that means game over, trust us.
Come on now, I realize being helpless is just part of the game here, but I really can't get up and just knock the fucking boy over and get my batteries back. And what a dick, you know, all these other abominations want my face and this asshole wants to make sure I die in the dark. Prick. But this is where I pussed out. I couldn't beat this game. I got as far as night 4 before my nerves got the best of me. I knew what to expect, I just could not react appropriately. There are 2 things that legitimately annoy me though. Let me start by elaborating that the Five Nights trilogy are point and click games. You use the mouse and nothing else, with the sole exception being this game where you use the control key to turn on the flashlight. To check the cameras, you hover the mouse to this little panel here and the game launches the camera for you, which feels a little weird. In FNAF 2, that's also how you put the mask on, but you hover the mouse over to this color panel instead, right here next to the camera button. When things get crazy, you are required to put the camera down and immediately put the mask on, which means you have to get a bit jumpy with your hand. You gotta get the mouse cursor away from the camera button and then back down to the mask button, all before the animatronics know you're bad company, and the window of time to do that gets smaller and smaller by the night. I think it would have been a better option to have the camera and mask options mapped to keyboard commands. Then there are some occasions where your flashlight suddenly decides to stop working on the hallway, like it shorts out or something when it really has no reason to. What exactly is going on? Is it the game's way of telling me that the animatronics are moving without having to animate them? This wouldn't be a problem if there weren't a chance that I could die from not flashing my light on time, particularly from Foxy. But this is exactly why I love having Elliot around. He loves this sort of shit, and he's way better at the game than I am. Just look at him conquering the 5th night right here.
I should be good.
Hopefully. Yes. Okay.
Yes!
Yeah! Good job, Elliot. You did that here, not in Let's Play channel.
Yeah!
Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is considered to be the hardest of the trilogy, and I can certainly agree to that. It's a game that manages to bring the scares while giving enthusiasts something to challenge themselves with its borderline extreme difficulty. We didn't even get into the custom nights where when set to max, make you cry with how fast you can die. After FNAF 2, expectations from the newly developed fan base were through the roof for Scott Cawthon. So how would he up the ante?
That leaves us with Five Nights at Freddy's 3, released just a few months after the second game came out, which, I remind you again, was released just a few months after the first game. Look, successful franchise or not, releasing your games in such a small time frame will do nothing but make me raise an eyebrow. Either these games cost nothing to produce, or they were rushed, and that often spells bad news for me. Judging from the praise the second and third game received, perhaps it really isn't an issue to the majority, but it's just a practice that bugs me personally. Let's move on. FNAF 3 takes place 30 years after the first FNAF.
I realize we've been skimming a bit over the story. It's another reason people really get into this series, so let's spend some time on it. Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria was the unfortunate site of a bunch of murders where 5 children were the victims. The killer, as far as we know, was never apprehended, but since then, the animatronics began to act very strangely. As in, now they suddenly want to walk around at night and murder the Night Watch sort of strangely. Could it be because the spirits of the murdered children have taken control of the animatronics? Maybe there was a fatal programming error that made these colorful characters the murderous beings that they have become. Is the murderer still out there? What's with these hallucinations that randomly appear, and what's their connection to everything? The FNAF trilogy throughout its run has managed to build an engaging and deeply thrilling lore that's mostly told through illusions. It's not completely black and white with what this means or what this represents, but piecing together the entire picture to understand what's really going on with the animatronics or to grasp the entirety of the situation is a huge part of the adventure for those who are really into the series.
Which is why I'm not really bothering with a thorough plot synopsis. When it's mostly interpretive, I don't feel comfortable in saying that this means this or that means that. There's a good chance this could mean this, or maybe the creator's just fucking with me. When it comes to the game, the only thing that matters is that something's out to get you, and you need to do what you can to prevent that from happening. It's not the story that makes you nervous, that's for sure.
Anyway, 30 years after the first FNAF, Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria is no longer a thing. However, someone thought it was a good idea to make a horror attraction based on the events that went down in that place, and when they decided to search the old pizzeria for artifacts to use for their attraction, they found one animatronic. This is Springtrap, and he's the sole enemy of FNAF 3. And if you think that makes the game any easier, well, I don't blame you for thinking that, but no. FNAF 3 still manages to be quite hard.
Are there just no OSHA regulations in this world? This building you work in has some of the shittiest working conditions I've ever seen. Your camera system is prone to shutting off in conjunction with the goddamn ventilation. That's right, it's a privilege to just breathe in this place.
And that's where the challenge kicks in, for you not only have to keep Springtrap away from your office, you also must make sure your audio device, camera, and ventilation are up to code. No camera means you can't see, and no audio means you can't play these sounds to lure Springtrap away from you. If your ventilation begins dwindling, there's a chance you'll begin hallucinating these burnt up illusions of the original FNAF animatronics that don't kill you, but they do disrupt you, and the time you spend rebooting what was turned off is time Springtrap is using to get closer to you.
Another reason why the game is pretty damn hard is actually keeping track of where Springtrap is. The yellow bastard really knows how to hide from the already visually lacking camera feed, and if you're not quick enough to spot him in order to properly distract him, it's only a short matter of time before he gets inside your office. Then there's the matter of the hallucinations forcing you out of the camera if you stare at them for too long. Some have an extremely short reaction times like the Phantom Puppet. I swear this motherfucker just interrupts you whenever he feels like, regardless if you actually looked at him on the camera.
The worst has to be the Foxy hallucination, which looks like it appears whenever it feels like in later nights. It's kind of unfair, really. I don't think there's anything you can do about it. It's just a random obstacle that forces you to reboot your ventilation through no error of your own.
I consider FNAF 3 to be the most frustrating of the trilogy when you're just trying to complete the standard 5 nights. The second game was hard because of the dexterity it required the player to have to deal with all the shit coming at you. In FNAF 3, I feel you're doing a lot of waiting and praying. When something goes offline, you're completely helpless for about 6 seconds as you wait for the system to reboot, waiting even longer if more than one feature is disabled. And it's not as if you can prevent that from happening, it's inevitable. No matter how well you can spot Springtrap, no matter how well you can redirect him to another room, the game will force you to deal with the malfunctioning systems, kinda leaving it up to chance on whether Springtrap will make a dash towards the office or not. Combined with the hallucinations that can divert you even when you just make a slight glance at them, and with how stubborn Springtrap can be with audio cues, there's no doubt you'll see the game over screen in FNAF 3 a hell of a lot of times. Also, maybe it's because we just finished playing the first 2 games, but FNAF 3 didn't feel as tense or intimidating as the previous entries.
Well, tension still rose high when we got closer to 6 a.m., but I think that, because you know there's only one animatronic, you don't feel like you're in a greater sense of danger, even if this bunny bitch is quick on his feet. Honestly, we were more exasperated than scared with this one, especially after the 15th death on night 3.
We were seriously considering stopping at night 4 after Springtrap gave both of us so much shit, but after taking a break we managed to pull through and complete the 5th night. We kinda did a relay system. I did night 2 and 4 while Elliot did night 3 and 5. We even did those hidden minigames that give you this sort of good ending.
Yes! Oh! Thank God!
Now, even though it clearly sounds like we're exhausted, this is merely a result of playing 3 games for one video. Yes, while I am personally bothered by how fast the sequels came out, the level of success that independent developer Scott Cawthon managed to achieve is awe-inspiring. I mean, before August of last year, who was Scott Cawthon? I'll tell you who he was the maker of this thing. But now look at him, creator of 3 hit titles that made a ton in sales, and now he's getting a movie deal with Warner Brothers based off the first game. That's living the dream right there, and if that doesn't make you want to give it a shot in life, then I honestly don't know what will. This man took something that didn't work and made it into something that did. That's how you do it, folks, and should you feel the need to give any of these games a try, the links to the Steam pages are in the description below. Mr. Cawthon, a job well done. but it doesn't hurt to slow things down a bit. Last thing we need is the man burning out, and nobody wins when that happens. This trilogy is something else, I tell you. I've never felt so tense playing a game besides the first time I ever played Resident Evil 1. Buyer beware, you're in for a scare.
You totally took that from Goosebumps, you know.
No, that was reader beware, you're in for a scare. You remember Goosebumps?
It wasn't that long ago, dude.
I suppose not. Okay then, now that the FNAF trilogy is done with, let's get on with the rest of the indie showcase. I'm still trying to process the amount of comments you guys left on the Journey video, but I have enough to make that Strawpoll I talked about. Be on the lookout for that, as the top 3 picks of that poll will be games to look at during the showcase. As always, thank you guys for watching, have yourselves a great night, and here comes the jump scare! Nah, I'm kidding, it's just the credits.
No jump scares? Wait, you were serious? Man, what a ripoff.